Hello and welcome to Tech About Town, brought to you by Communitech and Elevate IP. I'm your host, Alex Kinsella.
And I'm Angela Bruce.
Angela's my guest host today for a very special episode about the Communitech Startup Bootcamp.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the Startup Bootcamp? I know it's a 6-week program. I know it's for new-ish founders.
Early stage entrepreneurs.
That's way more professional sounding than newish founders.
That's what I'm here for.
Thank you very much. Well, tell me a little bit about the program.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, it is a 6-week program and most of the elements are in person. So it's nice to have founders back in our building here in Kitchener. And the program goes over different topics like customer discovery, validation, MVP fundamentals, sales, marketing, pitching, all the business fundamentals that you need to start and grow your business.
And the program was partially funded by the City of Kitchener, correct?
Yes, it is.
So tell us a little bit about that partnership.
Yeah, it's wonderful that we have the City of Kitchener being the main sponsor for this. And they were the actual main sponsor for the bootcamp showcase as well. So getting to have the program in person in Kitchener again and having the community be a part of that has been fantastic. Mayor Barry came out to the bootcamp itself and met some of the participants during our second week. And then he also came out to the showcase, which was fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I think the goal too with the City of Kitchener helping fund that program is really, bringing more businesses downtown, bringing them to Kitchener in general, but bringing them downtown. They could be the future workforces that are going to eat shawarma for lunch.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been nice. So since the founders were in our building here, some of them have now taken us up on our hot desks. A lot of them are seeing like how nice it is to be present and around other entrepreneurs. So hopefully we'll be seeing more of our early stage entrepreneurs coming in and being part of our community here.
Yeah, and we're doing this episode fresh after the Startup Bootcamp Showcase was on Wednesday, January 22nd. The winners were a company called Cirtus. They had 2 founders, and the founders are
Adanna, Amechi. Oh, okay. And the founders are Adanna, Amechi, and Dimitri, Njila.
They're 2 very nice people who came into the studio. They're here with us today. So welcome, Dimitri and Adanna. Well, welcome to the show. Congratulations, the winners of the first ever Communitech Startup Bootcamp Showcase, which was held on Wednesday, January 22nd.
22nd,
Oh,
yes.
Look at me without having that written down. Angela, do you want to tell us a little bit about the boot camp, and then we're going to talk to our winners?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Startup Bootcamp was originally, the concept was thought of because we have a lot of early stage companies coming in who have ideas and have no idea now what to do next. The idea of the bootcamp was to bring early stage entrepreneurs in, give them the guidance and the mentorship they need to be able to then propel themselves on to creating their businesses. So Cirtus came in a little bit ahead of the game, I'd say. They had a little bit more knowledge about what they were doing. Adanna is in school right now, also focusing on it. So I do believe that probably helped as well. But they came in, they took as much mentorship hours as possible. They talked to as many growth coaches as they could. And I think that that's probably why they ended up having the best pitch at the end of this. Yeah.
Well, even kind of jumping back. So how did you 2 get together for Cirtus? And are you both at UW?
Yes.
Yeah, you're both at University of Waterloo. So kind of how did you meet, and how did you come up with the idea?
Yeah, it's actually a long story. And for starters, we both went into Waterloo for chemical engineering, and so we were in the same cohort. That's how the relationship began. But specifically for Cirtus, this was around the summertime, I believe. And I think she had brought the idea out to me before. She had mentioned. And yeah, absolutely. Interject if I'm
You can jump in at any time. It's a casual conversation.
Cut him off if he's wrong.
Yes.
Add in the information.
But yeah, if I'm recollecting correctly, she brought it was a casual conversation, and she had mentioned something along the lines of technical interviews. She said how she had a few friends and family who had gone through the struggle, and this.
So I'd actually lived with 6 software developers in Ottawa. All of us went to the same high school in Nigeria, and we kind of moved and we connected. And I'd seen them actually go through this struggle. I've seen them apply for jobs and get the interview. And then it's like this 2 weeks of panic. Like, what do I even do? Watching YouTube videos, kind of like relying on people's like Reddit posts or just going off a random win and being like, you know what, I'm just going to study every single thing I can remember to study and hope that I pass the technical interview. And it was kind of like their feedback that kind of got me thinking, like, are you telling me that there isn't like a way to just study, kind of like for the MCAT or for like the LSATs? Like, you just have the book and you know exactly, okay, they're going to test you on these concepts, then you study those concepts, right? But what I found was that for every single company, it was kind of different. Like, different companies wanted different things, even though it was the same role at different companies. And then different companies in the same industry or in different industries also wanted different things. It was kind of like confusing. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And I kind of forgot about that. And then 2 years later, I met Dimitri and we kind of started talking about it again.
Yeah, I mean, that just seems like a big challenge. I mean, if you're doing like a introductory developer role, or introductory is not the right term. Junior developer role. But if you're doing it at Google and you're working on, you know, some AI tool, it could be totally different than if you're applying to Meta and it's an AI tool, even though large language models are generally kind of gets the same technology. That's kind of the idea, that everyone's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and we're focusing a bit more on the preparation, and we're taking into account the fact that people learn differently. Like, say I have 2 weeks, like she said, 2 weeks to prepare for my interview. I might want to cram in the first few days and then review a few days before the interview. Whereas someone wants to like break down their studying over the 2 weeks. So we're accounting for that as well. So yeah.
That's cool. And is that basically like, is it the information is provided by the companies, or is that by other people who've gone through those interviews?
It's kind of a mix of both.
Yeah.
Sometimes companies are very straightforward about what they expect their candidates to know going into the interview, or what they expect them to actually do during the interview. And sometimes they're more secretive, and you're going to have to rely on other people's experiences. And I think that's one thing we're trying to focus Cirtus around, is community, and focusing on what other people have kind of gone through historically and preparing new candidates to that kind of level, and being like, okay, this is what you need with your current skill sets. This is what you need to go study, and this is like the learning path for that. And then these are the mock interviews that you can do in a risk-free environment. Because another thing we found is you could be severely skilled, but you go in and you're like, wait, I just had a brain fart. I don't remember anything. And it's like all of that preparation just down the drain because you don't feel confident during the interview.
That's an interesting one, confidence, right? Because you think about, I've always told, once you get the interview, like, you've got your foot in the door and everything should be smooth sailing after that. But it's not necessarily the case. Did you experience that too, like when you were applying for roles at any point?
100%. And they're really nerve-wracking. I mentioned the Microsoft experience, and to this day, it's almost like the interview experience was like erased from my memory because of how traumatizing it was. That at the time I had gotten a call from Amazon, and they told me what to expect. They gave me some material to prepare for, but Microsoft was like recruiter call, and I walk into the interview, and it's just, you know. So yeah, definitely the trauma, and it's really, really, really nerve-wracking. And so yeah.
And one thing that we actually found just talking to different people of different skill sets, like the same software developers, but the senior developers didn't have that problem. Walking into the interview, they're more focused on, does this job fit my career? Like, is this the right culture for me? Like, do they have like the things that I need? But the junior developer, where it's like almost like their hair's on fire and they're like, I desperately need this job and I cannot mess up. I have to like come off confident. Even if I don't know what I'm doing, I just have to like say it. And then there's the other person who's like, what do they want from me again? Yeah. But yeah.
So can you give us an understanding of how Cirtus then prepares people for those interviews, and what's the different aspects that you guys are bringing all together?
Yeah. So the first step would be our skill assessment, and it would be a combination of, first we need to get some information about, like, okay, what's the role at which you're applying? What's the company? When is the interview? Things like that. But then after, we would actually test you to actually see, you know, because obviously we're not going to be teaching you like those like data structures and algorithm concepts. We're expecting you to already have a basic level understanding of them. But we're going to see where you stand. And then we're going to compare that to people who have historically interviewed and passed at that specific company. And then based on that information, then we would give you a tailored learning path, which would be somewhat of like a training plan. Where, like I said, depending on your preferences in terms of how often you want to study, and how often you want to study, like the amount of hours you want to spend like every single day. And then we would actually be testing you, giving you the specific concepts. We would actually be giving you, and the logic would, it would ideally be like somewhat of an incremental growth to the level that you need to be. And then once you've gone through your learning path, then you have the chance to go through a series of mock interviews. And once again, the mock interviews would match the company because, as we discussed, a company might, the wording is really, really, really important. Like, you could be asked the exact same question, but if it's worded differently, it might take you a bit longer to understand. And so, yeah, the mock interview would be really, really, really tailored to each specific company.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's analyze where you are right now.
Yes.
Custom learning plan for where you need to get the resources that you need to use.
Yeah.
And then test and make sure you can actually do it.
Exactly.
It's like a personal trainer for a job interview.
That's actually a good analogy. I've never thought about that.
Yeah. It is because you assess, right? Assess, plan,
Yeah.
test.
You're going to see that in their marketing material going forward.
That's awesome. So, kind of from that then, how did you learn about the Startup Bootcamp? It's like a meet cute, kind of thing.
Oh, okay. So I'm part of the Masters of Business, Entrepreneurship, and Technology at the University of Waterloo. And in our first week, we had a tour actually of the Communitech space, and then Gowlings and Google, and I thought it was so cool. The person who actually did our tour, sorry, I don't remember his name, but he kind of explained that they were like membership, and they kind of helped technology companies. And I was like, wow. I remember calling Dimitri that evening. I was like, oh my God, I just heard about this cool place. Like, they say that they can help us. Like, if you become members, I'm going to send you the website so you can do a little more digging yourself. And I had just seen that they had the Startup Bootcamp coming up. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, are we ready to be a part of like a boot camp like this? Like, I don't really know. Like, is this going to be different from what I'm learning in class? And I'm so glad we applied. Actually, the last day it was due, because we had to make up our minds. We weren't sure if we wanted to be a part of it, but then I kind of realized, like, you know what, like, you miss every single opportunity you don't like shoot for. It's possible that we apply and like Angela's like, nope, I don't like you guys. And I'm joking. So we applied, and yeah, that's kind of like how we got to this place, I guess.
Yeah.
Angela, you said that the team came further ahead than a lot of the other companies did, but you also thought you weren't where you needed to be. And so it's that kind of thing of sometimes when you're evaluating yourself, even you don't necessarily, you might put yourself at one level and you're really up here.
What I found interesting too is when you guys had first come in, we had originally with most of our programs, only one co-founder can usually be in the room and be a part of it. And so they had to go back and forth to decide who was going to come to the first one. And Dimitri is living in Pickering right now, so it's a little bit more of a commute for him to come, whereas Adanna is just right in town. And so for the first session, Dimitri came all the way out, was so attentive and asked so many questions and was just so present in being there that at the end of the session, I went up and I had a chat with him, and he's like, I'm going to have to fight her for who's going to be coming each week. And so it got me thinking, like, I do have a little bit of the space. There's only a couple. I think there's only 2 in the group that have co-founders. So I asked everyone if they're okay being a little bit tighter in the room. And then we were able to open it up so that 2 of the companies could have both the co-founders come in. And it was a great experience to have both of you guys in there, especially hearing, like, we'd go around and do pitches and we would ask people, like, what their company does, and hearing from each founder what their business does and hearing like their perspective on it, you get a totally different answer from each of them. So having that drive for when you first came in was really helpful, and I do think shaped a lot of the program too, of everyone being so open and being honest and with the responses. And I was so excited that both of you guys came in and I got to get to know each of you along the way. It's been really cool.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say too. I mean, the showcase, it's a competition. You won. That's awesome. But also the boot camp itself is very much like a learn as a community kind of thing. Were there other founders that you learned stuff from that you necessarily didn't think about before you got into the program?
That's a good question. I don't think I'm going to mention any specific founder, but going back to that first session, I think what really struck me was I had never been in kind of like the entrepreneur like space, and obviously all the other founders, some of them were like first time founders as well, but just I just felt the learning, I just felt the the endless possibilities for learning, and that's really what like attracted me. And also another thing specifically with Njila, like I think that first session you really set the scene for the fact that obviously some of you are first time founders, and it was a just safe environment. It was a safe environment, so I didn't have to worry about anything, and I could just absorb as much information as possible. And that's, like I said, that's really what struck me about that session. And I was gonna make the drive from Pickering moving forward.
Did you drive all the time from Pickering?
Yeah, every single time. Yeah, every time. Yeah.
In January.
I know it was in just like November and December,
yeah.
so
Oh,
it was
yeah,
in
that's
the
right,
it was in the snow each week, and it was brutal snow too. It was pretty bad.
It was worth every single drive. I can tell you, it was worth. Those 6 weeks were, like she said, amazing, and it was endless amount of information, mentorship. It was 100% worth it.
I just wanted to say that I found my best part of the Startup Bootcamp was the growth coaches. Honestly, I found a lot of them were super invaluable. Even getting to meet with them 30 minutes outside of class, specifically on your business, like I'm pretty sure that they're all like super well known, and it would have cost me at least a couple $100 for that. But yeah.
I think for me, one of the best parts was seeing everyone being so like brutally honest with each other. Having the founders come in and people asking questions that like maybe you'd want to ask that you were a little bit too nervous to, or they would start thinking of things that maybe you hadn't even thought to ask before, and then it like explodes your brain to thinking in a whole new way. I think that was the big value when it came to the community and people being safe, is that a lot of people asked what that you would consider a silly question, and then people would just jump off that, and it was so helpful for people to hear at different stages that people were going through. And again, people were very honest and vulnerable in the room. We had a lot of people ask if they could come and like witness what was going on in that space, and I was very harsh on like who I would let in and who I would not, to be honest. I was just trying to be the founders who had built those relationships together. Even sometimes I wasn't even part of the conversations. It's not something that I always need to be a part of. We're here to build a community of tech, Communitech, and just bringing everyone together and giving them the tools and everything that they need to thrive. That's what we're here for. And so I'm glad that was your experience in the boot camp. And the growth coaches, I am always going to be thankful that they are part of Communitech and the advice that they give, and the fact that we had almost all of them come in person. Unfortunately, we had someone sick, so we had to do one virtual. But having them come in person and give you guys all of the fundamentals, but then taking that one-on-one time with you to learn your businesses and then apply that specifically to what you guys are working on at that stage. I'm very grateful that they participate.
I always find in those kind of sessions when you have different, growth coaches coming in, or you have different founders that you're talking to, or all the different parts of the program, there's always something unexpected.
I guess one thing I can bring up is, on top of just having a co-founder, we definitely found out like the struggles that a lot of other founders trying to find the right person. But I definitely feedback that we got a lot was the advantage that we had. Not only like we have one hacker, we have one hustler, but also the connection that we have to the problem. And obviously, she's going to class right now, and that's one thing that she mentioned. You have to have a hustler. You want to have a hacker. You have to have a connection to the story. But hearing so many people mention it, some of the growth coaches took us aside and mentioned it. It's definitely confirmed, I guess.
What's so the hacker hustlers thing, is that part of the boot camp, or is that?
No, not necessarily, but when you're running your business, obviously you want someone who, like the technical side of it, right? If you're, a lot of the entrepreneurs that came into the boot camp are tech entrepreneurs and they don't know any of the business side. So that's what the boot camp is. It teaches you all the business fundamentals. And we don't teach, obviously, the technical side of things. We do have like MVP development that someone will go over, but it's more just like the fundamentals of that, not actually how to do it. So having someone who has that background and can be the technical side, and then having the business side of someone who can speak to customers, can go out there, and is understanding all the business fundamentals more like wholeheartedly is super beneficial. We found that a lot with some of the founders in the cohort that are just the technical side. They have to do 100% of the work at all times. So having someone that you can depend on and go back and forth and rely on each other's expertise is why that they typically recommend that you're not a solo founder.
Yeah.
So finding someone early on in the process of that who you can trust and rely on and believe in is super beneficial.
So now you've won the showcase, right? You're still in school, right? Yeah, so you're still in school. Are you still in school too, eh?
No,
you're done.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Congrats on that.
Thank you.
Isn't that nice getting out of school? Oh.
Yes.
But so what's the next for you both now with Cirtus? Like, is this going to become a full-time thing? Do you envision the Cirtus logo being on the side of a building? You know, unless you're remote only. In that case, no. But
I think we kind of hope that this Startup Bootcamp kind of like ignites that fire in us, and it has, to allow us to do that outreach and meet as many people and help as many people as possible, because that's really what our mission is, right? We're not just like doing this to like make money, which sounds bad, but is also the reason why we haven't even come up with like a revenue structure yet. We're kind of just like, let's just help the people,
right?
And then we'll figure that out when it comes. So just like trying to go out there and like find as many people as possible that we can help, I think is really our next step. And Dimitri obviously focusing on product development. I have nothing to do with that.
Yes.
That's where the hacker comes in.
I'm sure you could do some testing. Everyone has something to do, right? Yeah.
But yeah, like she said, kind of build off the traction that we got from the event. The response has been pretty huge. Obviously, the number of people who are at the event, but also just the other people in the community in general, we've gotten so much good feedback, so many people reaching out to us. And it definitely adds confirmation, gives us that validation, like extra validation. And so, 100% over the next few months, like I mentioned, we're going to be prototyping. We've had a lot of people join our wait list as well from the event. And so hopefully we'll be, shipping out prototype features to them, getting their feedback, and then building our MVP from that feedback.
That's awesome.
That's
well,
so
listen,
exciting.
thanks so much for joining us in the studio today to talk about this and share. It was really great to learn about it.
It's always great seeing you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
That was an exciting talk. You get inspired by, am I going to sound like an old person? You get inspired by young people like building something that like is relevant to the people in their lives. And that's, other, new grads or up and coming grads who are having trouble landing that first job.
Yeah, and it's helpful that both of them are working on this together. So I know that they talked a little bit about that when we were on air, but afterwards they talked more about how impactful it is to have both of them working on this together. So it was really nice having them both sit down with us today and both talk about their experiences.
Well, and that quote about if you want to go fast, do it yourself. If you want to go far, do it together. So I think that's, and we got co-hosts. So there you go. So a little bit about Communitech. Normally Sasha does this. I'm going to butcher it today. I'm really, really sorry. Communitech is an innovation hub located in downtown Kitchener. Founded in 1997 by a group of tech entrepreneurs. 20-something odd years later, it continues to serve founders with everything from help accessing funding, talent, space. So if you need a hot desk or an office or anything like that, a podcast studio, it's here too. So you can come check it out. You can learn all about Communitech and its programs at communitech.ca. We're also brought to you by our other official. We have 2 sponsors.
Whoa.
I know. That's what I'm pretty stoked about that. The other one is Elevate IP, which is a federal program that helps Canadian tech companies protect their IP, commercialize their IP. As we always say, protect it, don't neglect it. The program is accepting applications for the upcoming fiscal year, which starts, as all government fiscal years start, in April 2025. So they're accepting applications. It's January. Might as well do it now, right? New year, new IP. Go ahead and go do that. And we also always have to say our legalese speak, which is Communitech, North Forge, Technology, Exchange, and Invest Ottawa are corporations incorporated under the laws of Ontario and Manitoba and are not agents of the Crown.
I'd also like to do a shameless plug, if possible, for the next Startup Bootcamp.
No, I was going to ask you when the next, because you mentioned there's another one starting. So
Yes.
what's the deal?
So our marketing team is going to hear about this on this podcast, which is great, but I'm going to be messaging you, Allison. I'll say that separately. We are going to be launching the next round of bootcamp applications in February. So mid-February, keep an eye out. We're going to be plugging it all over our socials. I'll be reaching out to our local academic institutions as well, and try to get as many people to apply and have the in-person programming starting in April.
Yeah. And if you're interested in applying to the Startup Bootcamp or any other Communitech program, You can go to communitech.ca. There's a little newsletter sign up thing there. It'll send you a newsletter. It's always good to have. You can also follow them on social media at Communitech on all the platforms, pretty much. We still don't know if they're on Blue Sky.
Interesting.
We'll figure it out. I mean, go to Blue Sky and look, and if they're there, it's awesome. If not, then I could do it too, but I don't have Blue Sky.
Then just go to our website.
Or just go to the website. Honestly, the website is a source of truth as far as I'm concerned. So, just go there and you'll know what you need. Anyways, thank you as always for listening. I'm Alex.
I'm Angela.
And we'll talk to you soon.